really. I ran into him at the Pacific Club, and he was sitting in a booth with his bodyguards, and people were trying to meet him, and the bodyguards kept pushing people away. And as I walked out of the bathroom, he stopped me and said, "I know you. I've seen you around Chanhassen. You live in Chanhassen."
Kidding.
And I said, "Yeah." And he said, my name is Prince." And he reached out his hand and said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Natalie." And he then said, "Well, I'll see you around town now. We can wave to each other."
So you actually had a conversation with Prince?
Yeah, he was really nice. I've seen him more than once around town. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, because like I said, I'd never seen him except that one time, but you wouldn't know it. It seems like we're out in the country right now, but there's a quick trip, a quarter mile away.
Right,
there used to be a Hollywood Video a half mile away, and a Target, the Caribou, all that.
Actually.
And you would see him around at all these different places.
Well, and he used to live down 117.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before he lived at Lake Riley, or after he lived at Lake Riley. Yeah.
So he lived on Lake Riley.
He lived on Lake Riley, and he painted the house purple.
Okay, I knew that.
And then he painted it black, and he gave it to his dad. So his dad resided there.
Okay.
And he moved over onto 117. And
but then where does he live lately? Do you have any idea where he lived
I believe
lately?
he was living here.
I think he was too.
Yeah. And my dad had said, over 40 years ago, before he was very famous, he would have to go to his house on Lake Riley and for noise disturbance, and threaten to take away his instruments if he didn't take the noise down.
You're kidding.
No.
So this is when your dad was a cop.
Yep.
He would go to Prince's house.
Yep, and tell him if he doesn't turn the effing music down, he was going to confiscate all of his instruments.
Now, how did Prince react to that? Because here's a genius in the making.
Yeah, turned it down. He didn't. He's like, at the time, I didn't realize who I was
Well,
talking
who would? Yeah,
Right,
you wouldn't.
Right,
You wouldn't
right.
know. It's a kid with a loud amp.
Yep. And then as he got more popular, he rented out a area in the Eden Prairie Airport, one of the stalls.
Oh, he did, one of the hangars.
And that's when he would rehearse in the hangars.
That makes sense. I never knew that.
Yeah, so after the drive-in theater in Eden Prairie, we would go by real slow and walk along the fence, and you could hear them rehearsing.
Really? What year was that, you suppose?
84, 85.
So, but then I thought, well, who else from the 80s is still iconic? Bon Jovi, possibly. I mean, Bon Jovi is, no question.
Aerosmith, like Steven Tyler.
Yep, okay.
Rolling Stones still kind of do it, but they haven't been. They're not as impactful.
Really?
I don't think so.
No, that's a fair statement. Sure.
I mean, they're a rock band. I mean, they didn't change music like, to me, the Beatles or Prince or Michael Jackson or...
Does any work here?
I kind of did off and on with Larry Graham and Prince. I moved up here from Florida, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen to the studio.
I thought the same thing, because once Prince, it's kind of like, who else wants a big, huge studio in Chanhassen besides Prince? Who would run it, manage it, take care of it besides
Nobody.
Prince?
With technology the way it is, studios are disappearing. This is the Taj Mahal of recording studios.
Yeah.
Has been for years.
So you've been in there plenty of times?
Many times.
Okay.
Many times.
Describe it inside. I've never been inside there.
There's so many different parts to it, and it's changed a lot. I mean, there's a kitchen in here now that used to never be there.
Okay. So did he live in here lately that you know of?
There's living quarters. I mean, it's always rumored.
Okay.
For a while, he was over off like Fox Avenue in a former employee's house.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
There was rumors he had a house built out in Prior Lake. I mean, there was a lot of rumors. But there is living quarters here for him as well.
Okay. I kind of figured there were, because I mean, something this vast, and it's hard to get an idea of how big it is from just standing here, but it's huge. It's huge. What is this section over here? Is this like a TV soundstage?
This is a small soundstage at that loading dock.
Okay.
And then if you go straight through it, there's another loading gate just like that on the inside.
Okay.
That opens up to the great big giant, I think it's like 14,000 square foot if I'm not mistaken, soundstage where they would do, tour rehearsals, commercials, movies. I mean, build sets. I mean,
So who used it besides Prince? Because I mean, Prince is one guy, but would he rent it out or let friends, other artists use it, rent it?
He had a staff that was in charge of renting the place out, getting some sort of an income inside here for the month. People, like Best Buy was a big big customer that would film a lot of their commercials in
No
here.
kidding. Okay. Because it was a state of the art.
Yeah, state of the art,
studio
everything.
and-
Yeah,
okay.
movies were filmed in here. You
Oh,
know?
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Now, what about the studios? The recording studio? Was it like, just like, was it one big studio?
There's
with
three separate studios.
Okay.
Each one of them were different sizes.
Okay.
Each one had different equipment. All the boards would produce a different sound. I mean, I don't know how technical you want me to get, but yeah,
I'm not very bright, so don't get too
No,
technical.
come on. Just on a side note, I wear this shirt that says "I love my wife,"
Yes.
and I've been contemplating talking to you, and I asked my wife if I should,
Yeah.
and her statement is,
Uh-oh.
"Yes, tell him I love him."
Oh.
So I love my wife, and my wife loves you. I think
Well,
that's
tell
funny.
her I love her back. That's awesome.
But,
yeah.
yeah,
We'll get a
it's-
picture together before we leave.
The studios are amazing. I went to school to work on the boards, and it was just a dream come true to sit in the studios, and I don't even have words for. I've been at a loss all day.
I'll bet, yeah, because it affects different people on different levels. Somebody like yourself who is close to, the artist and close to his world is going to affect you differently than somebody's like, oh yeah, I used to love listening to Prince back when I was in high
tired
school.
of people talking about Purple Rain.
Yeah? How come?
He was so much more than that. It's hard to put into words. It's like he was much more than that. He was just more than just Purple Rain ever was. And it was just a fraction of time. And to really appreciate him, it would take more than just a 5-minute interview.
Sure. Yeah, totally understand. Very interesting. I think you're one of the first people I've talked to who's actually been in non-public parts of Paisley Park, because I talked to a lot of people who'd been to when he had his parties. I guess he had those back in the big soundstage area.
Yeah, in both the small and the big rooms.
Okay.
There were times he would actually open up the whole place, and people could actually go into the studios and take little tours. And,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Now, here's a weird question I haven't asked anybody. What do you think? Prince would have never foreseen this end. I think all of us expected.
Well, David
Prince
Bowie knew he was dying,
David Bowie knew he was dying.
and no, David Bowie not David Bowie didn't know Prince was dying. David,
I got you.
okay.
He knew that David Bowie was dying. Yes.
And
But
he
Prince did
spent
not.
many months. Hold on.
Okay.
David Bowie spent many months preparing for it.
Okay.
And I'm really hesitant about what to say and what not to say. But first of all, it's not a secret. Prince was a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And one of their, from what I understand, one of their rules, so to speak, is certain medical procedures aren't allowed.
Okay.
Medicines and stuff like that. They're to deny a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And whether he had the flu for real or not, or if that was just the story to cover what was really going on, we'll find out when the autopsy starts tomorrow. I feel that Prince has known for a while, because when you start declining medical assistance because of your religion, you know the end is coming.
Okay.
If you're at a point where, for example, if he had cancer of some sort, he can't do chemo. He's not allowed to.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
And if he had to decline it based off of his religious beliefs, where do you think that heads? Where do you think the end is? He could have had the flu, and it could have been the thing that done him in, or like I said, it could have just been the cover story. It's symbolic that he did this piano and a microphone tour. I was in here for the first show at Paisley when he first did it, which, by the way, was only because the Paris show was canceled because of the bombings a few months ago.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
He was scheduled to be overseas, not necessarily in Paris, but he was supposed to be in Europe starting that piano and a microphone tour, which ended up being canceled because of those bombings. So a few weeks went by, he had the shows here, and I was at the first one. And it started out him telling his life story to music. He sat at the piano talking about being an infant and being brought into the world, but he was all to music, and it was his attitudes and his perceptions and his taking everything in as a child and putting it to music, and then all of a sudden his teen years and his signing and struggling as a musician and writing his music, and then it just started going in order of all these songs throughout his career. And I got to thinking, why is he doing this? Sounds like a man who's dying. And then you hear about his memoirs. People don't do that unless they're dying.
Many times that's true, yes.
So my personal belief, and this is just my opinion, there's no facts based on this, is that he's known for a while. The emergency landing was probably just a scare. They had to touch down, do something, which they couldn't do anything because, again, he has to turn down certain things. You know, and I just think the end was coming, and he saw it.
That, you know, that makes a lot of sense. I think of all the things that I've heard tonight, that seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, we know that flu can kill people. It killed millions of people 100 years ago, but it doesn't really kill a lot of healthy adults.
Because we take the proper medication.
However, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and your religion may prevent you from doing that, so you know, so again, there could be into speculation, but I think that's respectful. Speculation.
And I'm not trying to be conspiracy theorist, but those are simple step-by-step things that I'm coming to that conclusion.
Very interesting.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but we'll find out within the week, I'm sure.
A lot of people have enjoyed your perspective, so I really appreciate it. You're getting some really interesting comments. And somebody says, makes perfect sense, so insightful. Lots to think about, but interesting points from this guy. This guy is great. He's making some great points. So we have not talked to anybody else tonight or today who has had that perspective. So I appreciate it. What's your name?
Sean.
Sean. I'm Dave.
Nice to meet you, Dave.
Good to meet you. Do you want to get a photo for your wife?
I suppose.
Okay. You don't have to.
She knows what I look like. Though.
You don't have to. But if you want to. Me and you together?
with
with your
phone,
phone, me and you.
Okay.
Me and you.